Joining me on the program now, public theologian Dr. Craig Heilmann. Craig, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Kia ora, Andrew. Great to talk to you, mate.
Is this the biggest split within the Anglican Church since Henry VIII needed a divorce? I mean, it's almost that big, really, isn't it?
I think it's pretty massive. I guess it's been threatening to split for a long, long time.
Yeah.
But the GAFCON people, the conservatives in the Anglican Church, have finally stepped up and said we're no longer in fellowship. We are now the real Anglican Church, and you guys don't count. You're not on the team anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not that they've left the Anglican Church. It's that they're saying, hey, we got the numbers on this one, 40 million.
Yeah.
They are the majority. Just
right.
The decisions that they make in Lambeth Palace, perhaps not as relevant as they used to be. And it's their bat and ball, and they decide who's captain, right?
That's it, mate. They've made a whole new game, and they've decided Lambeth doesn't matter. The Archbishop of Canterbury doesn't matter. The system of their unity doesn't matter. They've got their own unity going on. And I guess they'd say, look, we didn't leave the Anglican Church. The Anglican Church left us,
Yep.
and so we are the true Anglican Church. It reminds me a bit of the confessing church in Nazi Germany. You know, Bonhoeffer very courageously said to essentially the whole German church, outside the confessing church, there is no salvation. Well, the confessing church was about 10% of the church in those days.
Wow.
And he basically said the other 90% were on their way to the nether regions. So in this case, they've got the numbers. It's 40 million Anglicans. There's only 4 million Anglicans in the UK, and
Wow.
they're being told, basically, we're not playing with you anymore.
I mean, that is pretty brutal, but as you mentioned earlier, this has been coming for some time. There is a group, a subset of Anglicanism called the Confessing Anglicans that have been operating separately with different principles, slightly different theology and practice, and it hasn't caused a split. It's a agree to disagree kind of principle. This is a bit more serious. Do you think?
This is more serious, absolutely. And I mean, look, if you think how creative the Anglicans are, and I was well aware in New Zealand when I was pastoring there that there's the Order of St. Mark's, which holds all the very conservative churches that still want to be part of the Anglican movement, and they don't have to do some of the things the other churches can do. So some of the more liberal churches can do same-sex blessings, all that sort of stuff. Whereas those more conservative churches were not obligated in any way to do that because they hid them in the Order of St. Mark's. And that's what I love about the Anglicans, you know, the 39 articles, you can drive a Mack truck through that. And they've got other measures of flexibility. And I guess that's how you stay together after 500 years of being Protestants. But in this case, it's blown up on them. This all goes back to Jerusalem in 2008, where the Conservatives sort of beat their chest and said, we need to reform. And I guess they've decided in 2025 that reform hasn't happened. And so now's time to move on. The grass is greener somewhere else.
This, in some ways, you could spot this from orbit. This was a predictable consequence of the decision of the Anglican Church to appoint the person that they did as the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, I don't have skin in the game on this one. I'm not saying whether that decision was right or wrong, but it certainly was a predictable outcome of the decision that they made. Some people would say, well, hey, if it's a fight they want, they've got it. And it's difficult to find a way of saying, hey, a split in the world's second largest denomination, difficult to spin that as good news. Craig, but hey, if it was such a predictable outcome, some people are now asking, so why did they take this step?
Yeah, well, we call a church split, 100 people leaving a church and starting somewhere else, don't we? I mean, the Anglicans just lost 40 million people from, emergent world countries. So it's where Anglicanism is strong. I don't know where they go from here, to be honest. I tend to think this is a major issue. And look, it's only going to gain legs from here, I think. The gulf is just too big. I think the appointment of Sarah Mullally was obviously just red rag to a ball stuff for the conservative Anglicans around the world. I hope it's not just because she's a woman or even because. But I do think her views on same-sex issues, LGBTQ, etc., red rag to a bull stuff. They've made this about the Bible, and that's the really important thing we need to recognise here. It's about the Bible.
And honestly, yes, it's about the Bible, and certainly stand by that as a great place to base your theology. But both sides in this, as with a lot of church splits, would say, well, yes, we also believe in the Bible. We just read it differently. We interpret it differently than you guys.
That's exactly right. And they just simply do not agree on how to read the Bible. And I don't know any way around that. I mean, you've got to read it within your tradition. Mm-hmm. And I guess they've decided I guess there are two traditions within Anglicanism, and they represent the conservative one. And it's now become essentially a different tradition.
Essentially, this is perhaps the largest example of what's happened many, many times over the last 500 years, ever since Martin Luther says, you know what, we don't have to obey the guy at the top, we can make up our own rules, that churches have split into smaller and smaller groups, each person having their own theology and not wanting to sit under the leadership of somebody else. This has been the story of the Protestant church for 5 centuries. Having said that, we have diversity within the body of Christ. There are people that believe different things about certain doctrines or liturgy, but Jesus, God, the Bible, that's central. We can agree on the important stuff. Having different denominations hasn't harmed the body of Christ in many ways.
No, I guess at one level it's made it. We've basically enjoyed the marketplace in a way. Like we're a voluntary operation now. You don't have to go to church, and so the marketplace speaks in many, many ways. I mean, the genius of Protestantism, Andrew, as you know as well as I do, is splitting. There's the People's Front of Judea and there's the Judean People's Front, yep. And they're radically different. And we find a way not to be together. We find a way to be apart. Look, I don't know in this case, where the judgment lies. I think it's a shame to see something as big and strong, was big and strong as yep. Anglicanism go this way. And it's a shame at the relational level. Obviously, that's the biggest challenge when churches split or when denominations split or whatever. It's just all the hurt feelings and relationships that are broken that probably will never be restored. I mean, that's one of the major challenges.
Although, hey, maybe this is a case of lancing the boil. As you say, there's been awkward conversations within the Anglican family for many years. Now we're actually talking about it. Now some decisions have been made, and potentially, he says optimistically, that some healing can come for that. Do you know what this means for the Anglican communion in New Zealand, in Australia? Do they need to pick a side on this one? I know there is both traditional Anglicans and confessing Anglicans here in New Zealand, for example. Will that continue similar to what it has done in this part of the world, or is there going to be fractions and factions within New Zealand and Australia as well, do you think?
I'm no expert on Anglicanism, but I think it's just going to give people options. And the hardcore conservatives, there are some very hardcore conservative Anglicans, as you know, yep. in Australia. There are a few in New Zealand, but there are many, many hardcore conservatives in Australia, particularly based in Sydney and around Moore College, the sort of low church Anglicans. My guess is they'll end up joining one or the other. And I think there could be an exodus of others from the broader Anglican communion under the Archbishop. So we'll see. We'll watch this space and see. But my guess is there's more trouble at the mill.
Hey, and with any messy divorce, of course, the big question is, who gets to keep the property? The Anglican Church in New Zealand and Australia and many different parts of the world, significant land holdings. Some of those land holdings are churches that are hundreds of years old, which are very expensive to maintain. So maybe people would be happy to pass those on and start anew, but there's going to be some complex conversations to follow. But Craig, appreciate your wisdom, your understanding on this issue. Thanks for joining us today.
Bless you, Andrew. Great to talk to you, mate.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.